Hebrews chapter 11, verse 21. One verse touching the tears of failure. By faith, Jacob, when he was dying, blessed both the sons of Joseph and worshipped, leaning upon the top of his staff. Let me read that one more time to you. By faith, Jacob, when he was dying, blessed both the sons of Joseph and worshipped, leaning upon the top of his staff. Now Jacob was the third in the lineage of Abraham. And Abraham was the man to whom God gave this promise in Genesis. He called him out from among his own people. And he gave him a promise that is so utterly profound that it had to be simply believed, because there is nothing of Abraham's natural thinking could ever bring this about to pass. In Genesis 12:2 and 3, he told him, I'll make of you a great nation, and I will bless you. And I will make your name great, and you shall be a blessing. And in you shall all the families, in part of verse 3, in all the families of the earth shall be blessed. Can you imagine getting a promise like this? One man just singled out by God. And now Jacob is the grandson. This was his grandfather. It was Abraham, Isaac, and then Jacob. And he'd be fully familiar with this. And as a young man, even though he wasn't in the direct lineage, he wanted this promise to be fulfilled through his life. And he was willing, of course, if you know the story, to go to great lengths to get this promise. He wanted this blessing to flow through him. And if you are an honest Christian here this morning, then obviously you want this blessing of God's life to be in great measure flowing through your life as well. Now, nearing the end of his days, Jacob had, by his, initially at least, his own initiative, he had gained access to this blessing, and then finally he had an intimate encounter with God, and he truly did receive the blessing. And you can see him coming back into the promised land after a long, long journey where God was dealing with some issues of his own character, coming into this place of promise, being told by God himself that he was going to be blessed, knowing that the blessing that was spoken to Abraham was now on him. And you can see him now near the end of his days. He's coming from the land of promise into Egypt with an entourage of 66 people. Genesis 46:26 said from his own loins. He's coming into Egypt. And some of this lineage, it's not much. I mean, can you imagine being Jacob? You've traveled all these years. You've been the inheritor, as it is, of this blessing. And nearing the end of your days, all you have are 66 people, as it is, supposed to bless the whole world. And all that's come from your own life, or your own loins, as it says, are 66 people, and some of whom had been a great disappointment to him. You think for a moment when, at the end of his days, when he calls his sons in, several years down the road, and he tells them, I want to tell you about your future and what the Lord has for you. His firstborn, Reuben, was the son of his strength, as it is. This is the man, the son, through whom the blessing should have gone through. But Reuben was an unstable, lustful man. And Jacob had to tell him, you're not going to excel because of these issues in your character and what you did. You're in the lineage as it is, but you're not going to excel. And then the next two sons, Simeon and Levi, they wouldn't carry any of his honor with them because they had been angry and self-willed men. And they had taken things in their own hands, and they had exacted vengeance and caused great suffering and even reproach to his own name because of their anger and their self-will. When Jacob came into Egypt, he met Pharaoh, and Pharaoh asked him, he said, how old are you? And in Genesis 47:9, he says, the days of my pilgrimage have been 130 years. And he said, they've been few and evil have been the days or the years of my life. That's an amazing thing to say for the man through whom the blessing of God is coming to literally, supposedly, bless the families of all the earth. And the word evil in the original text means my days have been of inferior quality. They have not been what I thought they were going to be. They somehow missed the mark of what I felt God had planted in my heart, of what I thought my life should be. My life has been less, in other words, than I perhaps once hoped it would have been. How many can, you don't have to raise your hand, obviously, but there are people here today that maybe have been a Christian for a certain amount of time, or maybe you're not a Christian, but you have this common thought in your heart, my life has not amounted to what I thought it was going to be, what I had hoped. And when I first came to God, I saw so many things that I should be accomplishing, and I came to the understanding that my life was to be a blessing, and people throughout the world were to be blessed through my life. But look at what I've become. And I'm nearing midlife, or I'm getting past midlife, or whatever, wherever you are today. And you can identify with Jacob and said, my life has not produced what I thought it was going to. I've somehow failed in this journey. I'm ending with so little, seemingly, to be seen by the natural eye of a life that was supposed to bless the world. Ending up in famine and at the mercy of a foreign country. You know, can you imagine? What must have, the thoughts that would be going through this man's mind? Heading out as it is, leaving, as he thought, the land of promise and going into a foreign country, and this great blessing that's supposed to be flowing through his life, he's now at the mercy of a foreign government as it is. He has to go into Egypt to eat. And he's supposed to be the man through whom the world is going to be blessed. Yet Hebrews 11:21 tells us that at the very end of his days and the end of his natural strength, he worshiped. Now, folks, we have to ask ourselves a question. What was the basis of this worship? I know for sure it wasn't just an empty song or form or ritual. A lot of people finish out that way in the Christian church. It's just an empty song. Coming into the house of the Lord and singing the songs of Zion, but being 100 miles in heart away from the words that are coming out of their lips. Life has been such a disappointment. Perhaps even God, in some measure, to them, seemingly has been a disappointed to them. But I want to suggest to you that his worship was real. The Bible would not pen the word worship if it wasn't worship. He didn't just lean on his staff and give lip service to God. He had to have seen something. And I want to suggest to you that he saw something so profound. Hebrews 11:13 said, these all died in faith, not having received the promises, but having seen them afar off, and were persuaded of them, and embraced them, and confessed that they were strangers and pilgrims on the earth. Now here's what I feel. I feel that Jacob saw something so profound that he could say, my God, I'm not of this world. In other words, I'm not subject to its limitations. I'm not governed by its sorrows. In spite of my failings and frailties, the plan of God has been going forward through my life absolutely unhindered all along. I believe he saw it because when he called his sons in, now keep in mind, in Genesis 49, I want you to go there with me just for a moment. We see at the end of his days, Jacob calls in his sons, and I don't know exactly what must have been in his heart, but it must have been a difficult moment for him to be calling in your own sons who've been raised and are supposed to be the inheritors of this blessing, and yet there's such a deficiency in the firstborn that are all around him. And he called his sons together, and he had to say to Reuben, you're my firstborn, verse 3, my might and the beginning of my strength, the excellency of dignity and the excellency of power, but you're unstable as water. You will not excel because you went up to your father's bed and you defiled it. He went up to my couch. And then he turns to the next two sons. He says, Simeon and Levi are brethren, instruments of cruelty in their habitations. O my soul, come not thou into their secret, unto their assembly, mine honor, be not thou united. For in their anger they slew a man, and in their self-will they digged down a wall. Cursed be their anger, for it was fierce, and their wrath, for it was cruel. I will divide them in Jacob and scatter them in Israel. And then all of a sudden, is it possible that his eyes were open? I don't know at what point his eyes were opened. But he looks upon this next son, and he says, Judah, thou art he whom thy brethren shall praise. Thy hand shall be in the neck of thine enemies. Thy father's children shall bow down before thee. Judah is a lion's whelp. From the prey, my son, thou art gone up. He stooped down, he crouched as a lion, and as an old lion, who shall rouse him up? The scepter shall not depart from Judah, nor a lawgiver from between his feet until Shiloh. That's the Messiah come. And unto him shall the gathering of the people be, binding his foal unto the vine, and his ass's colt unto the choice vine. He washed his garments in wine, and his clothes in the blood of grapes. His eyes shall be red with wine. That means his eyes shall be as dark as wine, and his teeth as white as milk. Praise be to God. I see Jacob looking, and he's saying, God Almighty, with all of my trouble and all of my years and all of my frailties and all of my failings and all of the deficiency that's all around me, I finally see that you have had a plan, and this plan has been flowing through me. It's been flowing through my lineage. It's been flowing through my loins. It is absolutely unhindered. This plan is not stopped by my frailties. God has determined to do something, that through my life, He is going to bless this world, and this plan has not stopped because I've failed Him. It's not stopped because I've failed Him in my thinking. It's not stopped because I've failed Him in some of my direction. It's not stopped because I've even doubted Him in my journey. I'm not of this world. You see, folks, if you are of the world, you are under its limitations. If your mind is in agreement with the thinking of this world, then you finish life a failure. You finish life saying it should have been more than it became, because all that there is for those who are of this world is what is in this world. But Jacob saw something. He saw it in Judah. I don't know at what point he saw it. I'm sure it must have been a surprise. I'm sure when he first saw it, he said, my God, I'm not of this world. This world has no hold on me. This world has no hold on my future. It has no hold on my family. I'm not subject to its limitations and to its sorrows.